So, what should we expect from the solar eclipse April 8th? So, guys, the solar eclipse, which is next week, April 8th, 2024, what should we expect from it? Because there's a lot being said. There's a lot of religious implications. There's a lot of scientific implications. There's a lot being said. And personally, there's only one thing to worry about, and we're going to talk about that towards the end of the video. But I think that's more of a worry if you're going to travel. But I'll get to that in a second. So, the religious implications, there was something called a red heifer, right? So it's a red cow, female cow, obviously, that is without blemish, right? No scars, no whatever blemishes are on a cow. So the religious implication behind that has something to do with cleansing. Obviously, it gets sacrificed, the carcass gets burned, and then those ashes are used to cleanse people who touched dead bodies, were murdered, and or died of natural causes, which you're pretty much using this ash for everyone. So that's the implication for it. And there's also something about the red heifer using the ash as a cleansing process to build a new temple and the return of Christ. So again, I was reading this today and I was sitting there and I'm like, there's a lot of different meanings for a red heifer. So it's not just one thing. In the Torah, it means something different than the Bible. So, or sort of along the same line, but the definitions were different. But anyway, so I'm reading that and I'm having a hard time. I'm just having a headache. I'm like, well, what is it? Which one is it? So I'm trying to explain both the best I can because I know somebody on here, one of you nerds, are going to be like, oh, it means. There's a couple of different meanings to it and how it should be processed. The cow should be processed and what should it be used for. So I'm not going to get into that because, again, that's a little long and drawn out. But if you're interested, I'm pretty sure there are other religious YouTube channels that you can watch that'll talk in depth about the red heifer. The other concern, which I didn't think this was I thought this was a big concern, but then I looked it up and I didn't see anything, CERNs. Someone stated that CERNs was going to fire up their collider April 8th at the time of the eclipse. Now, yes, those CERNs is looking for the ghost particle. Don't know how you're going to find that. But being that they're looking for that ghost particle, some people seem to think they're going to fire it up April 8th. As of right now, they're not firing it up April 8th. In fact, they're not firing it up at all this year. There's nothing on schedule for them to fire it up. So if you guys do find something, please let me know by emailing me at angryprepper@yahoo.com. And then I'll look into it and then I'll not update the video, but I'll put an update short, if that makes sense. Right now, CERNs is not doing anything. Now, when I heard that CERNs was firing it up April 8th, or at least I thought they were, the first thing that entered my head was the portal for demons to come through. Because in the past, solar eclipse was always tied to evil. And that a portal somewhere in the world can open up and demons can come out and wreak havoc and all this other shit because it's the darkest time and they come out and they start fucking, doing demon shit. So when I thought that, I was like, shit, they're going to open up a portal and this shit's going to happen. And then, of course, coincidentally, there's a guy now that developed a rare disease where he sees demon face. I just thought that was all like, whoa, right? But again, not worried about it because CERNs is not firing anything up. Should they happen to do it at the last minute, what could happen? A million things can go wrong. Anytime they fire up that thing, a million things can go wrong. So far, it hasn't. Now, keep in mind, these guys are physicists, so they're pretty good at gauging what's bad and what's not. I mean, then again, when Oppenheimer was talking about detonating an atom bomb, they thought that it could destroy the world. Or that there was a very small percentage that it could, sorry. And that didn't happen, luckily so. But CERNs is not a concern either. Now, NASA, that was a bit of a red flag for me. When I heard that, I was like, why is NASA taking so much interest in this eclipse? Now, apparently this eclipse is a rare one. It's the rarest one in a few years, or a few hundred years, whatever it is. But it's been a few years since there's been a solar eclipse of this magnitude that NASA is taking such a concern. They're taking such a concern, they're implementing something called citizen science. This is where they want you, the citizen, to go out there and record the solar eclipse. They want you to record the sounds. I don't know why there's a solar eclipse making sounds, and I don't want to hear any fucking sounds coming from that. I really don't. But nonetheless, they want you to record that. So you probably have to go to a quiet spot and record the sounds. They also want you to take note and collect data on animal activities, whether that's your pet at home or pets out in the forest. They want you to record that and their behavior. So that was a bit of a red flag, but being that they're doing something called citizen science, and I never even heard of that until just the other day. Red flag number 2 with NASA is they are launching 3 rockets into space, and they're going to record in the ionosphere as to the effects the solar eclipse is going to have in the ionosphere. And they were talking about satellite communications and things like that being disrupted. So I thought that was weird. I'm like, well, then you only need 1 rocket or satellite or whatever recording device to do that. They're sending 3. NASA is definitely up to something, and there is something that they are not saying. As per every government agency on this planet, they're recording something, or they know something might happen, or they think something might happen, and they're not telling us. So again, that was a bit red flaggy to me, but still not a concern. It's just in the back of my head, but it's not a major concern. Because I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, well, shit, what are they really worried about? Well, whatever it is, we're going to find out that day, if in fact something does happen. Now, there is the possibility of an earthquake. That being said, a massive earthquake, being that the energy from the sun and the moon are aligning with one another, and the moon's energy could be amplified, and we could see things that we've never seen before, like possible tsunamis and or earthquakes. There is that. So there's something to consider, and I think that's why they want people to record it. And yes, if you're recording a tsunami, make sure you do it live, because that's the last time we're going to see you and or your camera. So that's something just to put, another thing to put in the back of your head. But again, not concerned. More concerning is something that a lot of people are talking about, and they're asking, why are certain states implementing the National Guards? Why are they doing this? Well, here's the truth of the matter. There are, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 50 million people that are going to travel to see this event here in the United States in a span that's only 115 miles wide, but it's actually thousands of miles long, right? So if you look at the span, it's only 115 miles wide. People are going to be crammed into that strip, if you will. So 50 million people supposedly going to see this. Now, I'm not sure how they figured that out. Maybe they did a poll. But 50 million people got cramming into this little strip that's only 115 miles long, though it's thousands of miles wide. A lot of places are going to run into the problem of heavy major traffic. This heavy major traffic could be bad. It can actually last a few hours to a couple of days if things get out of control. And therein lies another problem, running out of fuel if you're in this traffic and nothing's moving. People might run out of fuel, not depots, gas stations might be depleted of gasoline on the way to those areas, or in those areas, gasoline might be depleted. If people are stranded, then there's a food problem, because the supermarkets or the local stores in the areas might be inundated with so many people, there might not be enough food. So the National Guards in a lot of states are being sent to those areas to make sure things run a little more smoothly. So with that, guys, that's the bigger problem. Not that, the red heifer and the CERN's collider is going to be, and the scientists running around with their clipboards trying to figure out what's going on. None of that. It's that this can be a problem for those that are going to see the eclipse. Now, I'm thinking about going to see the eclipse, but I'm going prepared, because that's what preppers do. So I'm taking food with me. I'm taking my solar generators with me. I'm making sure that my truck is fueled up. So worst case scenario, I sleep in the woods somewhere. I'm taking my taking my hammock with me. So just in case, because I want to film this with my camera, but I'm also going there as a prepper, meaning I'm going to be prepared just in case I get stranded in one of those towns. And if I'm stranded for a couple of days, I'll be okay. Right? I'll have the food or water to make it comfortable for me, but I'm pretty sure everybody else won't be if they get stranded there. There will also be cell phone disruption within that area. Obviously, guys, if these areas are inundated with a lot of people, you're going to see cell phone disruption, so that's something to consider. The FAA also said there might be disruption in flights for several days. Now, I thought that was a little weird. I'm like, why is it several days? I can get that day, being that the eclipse is going to cause its issues, but several days? And the several days are starting the day before the eclipse, April 7th to April 11th, or 10th or 11th, if I'm not mistaken. So several days of flight disruption. That's something else to put in the back of your head. Now, the path of this eclipse, total eclipse that is, so New York City is seeing 89% total blockage, and Jersey seeing 90%. Those are the only two states that I actually read about where they talked about where you can see it. The total eclipse is following these states: Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Missouri, Michigan, Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, and as far south as into Mexico as well. Part of Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. So these are the states that are going to have the total solar eclipse. So if you're looking to see this thing and you live nearby, Pennsylvania, it's going to be obviously west of me, and New York is going to be northwest of me. So I'm trying to pick out a spot in the forest where I can go and see this, not be bothered by a lot of people, but I'm pretty sure there are going to be people thinking like me as well. Now, if this becomes too complex, I'm not going to go. Something is telling me to stay close by, and so I'm leaning towards staying. But I do want to see this because, again, it's a once in a lifetime, and something like this won't be seen till, like, I don't know. There's another solar eclipse in 20 years, but we won't see it here. But to see something like that, that'll be directly over New York, will be in like 2179 or something like that. Like, we'll all be dead by then. My point. Anyway, guys, I don't see this to be a big issue. I don't see this to be a big to-do. I'm not worried about any of the religious implications or concerns. NASA's concern with this is a little red flag to me, but I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about if I actually go out there, am I going to get stranded with these knuckleheads? That's the only concern. So if you're going to see this, just keep that in mind, guys, that you need to be super prepared. Have your bug out bag with you, have your tents, have your solar generator, have all this shit you're going to need just in case you get stranded in one of these towns for a few days. Other than that, guys, this is the Angry Prepper. Thank you for watching.